boy Cousin Smoothie. I got me a can of Surge, and I got my hat on backwards. It's time to talk about the 90s. This is a review for CNN's The 90s. Can we all get along? So I thought tonight's episode was slamming, which kind of caught me by surprise when you consider the subject matter of tonight's episode was racial tension in the 1990s. Yeah, I thought I was going to come out of this episode being pretty depressed when you consider they're talking about white people getting away with killing black people, Rodney King, and the riots with LA on fire, and people just dying left and right. But that wasn't the case, and I think what it comes down to is just how they handled the subject matter. I considered that, it was very analytical. They were analyzing the situations of, what led to what, cause and effect, and why people were angry. And I think they did a very good job on tonight's episode. I felt like I learned a lot of stuff. Like, take for instance the title of the episode, Can We Get Along? Is what Rodney King said when they brought him up to address the riots. And he was pretty nervous because, one, the guys who beat the shit out of him were getting away with it, and now you've got all these people rioting and destroying stuff and setting on fire and doing a little killing, all because, in reaction to him getting beaten up. So sort of like maybe he felt like it was all because of him, and he kind of stuttered out with this, can't we all get along? Now the interesting thing is, I realized then, I've been saying his quote wrong this whole time. 20 years, people, whenever they want to use the Rodney King quote, it's always, can't we get along? But that's not what he said. He was pretty nervous, so he kind of mumbled out, can we all get along? I was like, wow! It's like the Darth Vader with Luke, I'm your father. No, I'm your father. So there was that. I also thought the episode, what I loved about it, it was not black and white. It wasn't just about how white people were being racist to blacks. You also had tension between African Americans, blacks, and Koreans in L.A. You had a situation where a Korean woman, a storekeeper, shot a black girl in the back, and she got away with this, right? Even though she was convicted, she served no jail time, so that created some tension between the two groups, and kind of made the Koreans, someone who not white, look racist for once. But also at the same time, when you've got blacks saying things like, "Oh, these Koreans are coming to our neighborhoods, and they're taking our money, but they're not contributing to the neighborhood," kind of made the black people look racist. And I thought that was an interesting take. O.J. Simpson, he of course came up in this, and I thought there was an interesting something that someone said was interesting. It was this woman, she was talking about how they weren't celebrating how he got away with murder. They were celebrating because it was a giant fuck you to L.A., which had allowed, these white cops to beat up Rodney King and just treat black people like shit for years. And now you had a black person was getting away with killing some white people, and it was because they had fucked up with, Mark Furman perjuring himself on the stands. Interesting enough, back in the 90s, when the O.J. Simpson trial was going on, I was one of the few white people who didn't think he did it, or I just wanted to be found not guilty. My reasons were I didn't trust the media whatsoever. I thought they were kind of like tabloid journalists, and they didn't give a shit about telling the truth or innocent before proving guilty. They were trying to convict them in the court of public opinion. So I couldn't stand the media, and I thought they were lying to us. And I was happy when O.J. was found not guilty. Now, years later, of course, I think the son of a bitch did it just because of the way he kind of carries himself. But at the time, I was happy to see him get off. One of my favorite parts about this episode was they made Bill Clinton look like a piece of shit. They were talking about how he came in saying he was going to help the African Americans, but then he fucked them over on criminal justice with, all these lifelong prison terms. And basically, one guy was talking about how, he was a complicated character. I'm like, no, it's not that complicated. He's a piece of shit. He promised you all this stuff, but then he fucked you over. He's a piece of shit. It's not that complicated. And I love this because the last episode, Clinton, the comeback kid, there was nothing but a suck fest about how great Bill Clinton was. It's like, come on, he's a piece of shit. You're not going to have one person on the show who's going to say, no, he's a slimy piece of shit. Well, tonight's episode, they had some people who said, he's a slimy piece of shit. And another thing that came up was Coke versus crack and the sort of disparity there in sentencing, which I thought was interesting. I think you know why. Plus, 86 to 88, I can't remember any of that because of a cocaine addiction. What can I say? The guy said it was nose candy. I took him for his word for that. All right, so with the coke and the crack, basically you have two products that are made from cocaine, which is illegal, and you go to jail if you got caught with either one of them on you, right? But the difference is, in sentencing, people who get caught with coke spend less time in jail than those caught with crack, to the point where you need 18 grams of coke to add up to 1 gram of crack when it comes to sentencing. Let's say 1 gram of crack will get you 20-some years in jail, right? Well, you need 18 grams of coke to get the same amount of sentencing. And of course, people say are suspicious of this, and they're calling shenanigans on it because coke is more expensive. Therefore, people with money, usually white, are the only ones who can afford to buy it, whereas crack is very cheap, so very poor people who might be black, I'm not saying that all black people are poor, that's going to be their drug of choice. That's why that one, you spend more time in jail than the other one. Well, I'm against this. I'm just saying, let's balance it out. People get caught with crack should be equal to those who get caught with coke, which means less jail time. Or I'm saying maybe we can help the black people get it to the economic status they need to buy them some high-quality coot. I mean, that's some good stuff, and I don't see why we have to keep putting them in economic straits where they can't buy them some coke. Just joking. Yeah. Anyway, like I said, I thought tonight's episode was very good. I think I learned a lot. One of the things that, sadly, that we did learn is it's true. Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. It seems like we're going through a lot of the same stuff now that we went through in the 90s. So I would suggest if you haven't seen the episode, watch it. And that might give you a better handle on today's events. And that's all I got to say. Smoothie out.